A Unitarian Universalist church is an exciting place to be. You never know what you might see. We are the manifestation of a dream. I have witnessed dreams coming true. We are still dreaming. Let us feed our dreams. We are the manifestation of a dream. We are the people who were once imaginary. In 1951, 11 people dreamed of forming a liberal religious society in Winston-Salem. They fed their dreams and established this congregation. They wanted a refuge from religious and social bigotry. They hoped that people would attend. They dreamed freedom and created a space where freedom can blossom. They imagined as many as 50 people attending Sunday services. And when 50 were gathered, they imagined 100. We are the people beyond the imagination of the founders of this fellowship. They fed their dreams with time, talent, and treasure, building a foundation for the future. They had no building, they had no minister, and they had a minister who didn't have his pages correct. Things were more spontaneous. They had no building, they had no minister. They did not have a director of religious education. They did not have an administrative assistant. They did not have a choir director. In fact, they were not even sure they wanted to sing. But they had a dream. They had a dream to feed, an embryo to nourish, and the fellowship has flourished. They bought a small house on Robin Hood Road. They volunteered to clean it and make it suitable for Sunday and for the parties and the meetings that built the bonds of community. Eventually, they built a building on that property, a sanctuary overlooking a garden where their dreams were growing. They were growing in more than numbers. They were growing in inclusivity. Mothers and fathers and children integrating the pools on the black side of town, becoming a welcoming congregation, telling the community that they welcome gays and lesbians by tying a pink ribbon around the entire building. That got noticed in Winston-Salem. They dreamed of welcoming more people, and they worked to make it so. Land was purchased on the outskirts of town, and a building was nestled in nature, parallel to Pilot Mountain, and more people came. They grew organizationally. Lay-led services, part-time minister, extension ministry, full-time ministry, volunteer school teachers, a part-time director of religious education, a full-time director of religious education. They grew spiritually, from guest speakers to session groups, to lighting chalice, having rituals of closing words, hymns and joys and concerns were added, distinguishing our services from college lectures. Humanism was commingled with Christianity and paganism and world religions. I've been here since the turn of the millennium, and I have witnessed dreams coming true. Membership has increased, pledging has increased, the program has increased. The building was new then, and it was your proudest accomplishment. Since that time, this building has been transformed into an instrument of our mission. It is a welcoming and inclusive space. We welcome the Path of the Moon Pagan Circle. Our building is a haven for the persecuted religious minority. We are supporting the cause of religious freedom. Our building is a welcoming, inclusive place for Free at Last, the Narcotics Anonymous group. We provide a place for hope and healing, a place where people are free to choose a healthier life. This is an act of justice, equity, and compassion. Every 4 weeks, we house the Triad Buyers Co-op, putting our 7th principle into practice, respecting the interdependent web of which we are a part. Organic and locally grown food help the health of our community and our world. Our environmental principles are further expressed by hosting Earth Day each spring. On Mondays, the Symphony Chorale rehearses here. The arts reflect the inherent worth and dignity of humanity, and we offer our space for the harmony of community. And I've witnessed the growth of our own choir. When I came here, we had members of our fellowship who were not members of our church choir. They kind of felt it might be a tad amateurish. But under the skillful leadership of Minyan Dao, the complexity and the quality of music has improved. Experienced singers have joined the choir and novices have improved. This is one of the tightest groups in the congregation, both in the harmonies, but more importantly, in the friendships and the care that has developed in this over the years. And I dream of funding this program so that we could enjoy them every Sunday for the entire year round. And we've grown musically. We are as diverse as our theology. Classical, jazz, gospel, folk, and rock and roll all speak to the human spirit in different ways. The world music we heard today is an indication of how we try to expand our horizons and be inclusive. I have witnessed the growth of the care committee. When I was arrived here, I was informed if I wanted to know who need pastoral care, all I had to do was talk to Jesse Bush. Jesse was a long-term member who kept track of everyone. Jesse and her husband moved to Florida, and she didn't want to continue the job. So we had to step up our game. The care committee has become large. They carry out many functions: home visitation, food, sympathy cards, get well cards, transportation, and filling the gaps in so many ways, including starting a support group for separation. This is an example of how churches grow. A small fellowship will have a family style of doing things. Matriarchs and patriarchs make sure things get done. When the congregation grows, they call a minister to help centralize that focus. But eventually, the needs become too great, even for the minister and the elders. A structure and a policy must be developed to reach more people. Bureaucracy happens. And bureaucracy has a bad name because people are afraid of complexity. It can be disconcerting when a fellowship seems so complicated. Why don't we just put on a show whenever we feel like it? But if the complexity is serving our mission, we will find it liberating. I'll tell you a parable of how complexity can help. The Wright brothers dreamed of flying. The simplest plan was to jump off the barn in Dayton, Ohio. Now, jumping from the hayloft was fun. It was about 12 feet high, and you had about 2 seconds, and it was quite a thrill. Now, the eave of the barn was about 20 feet high, and you stayed airborne for slightly longer, but the landing was considerably rougher. The top of the barn was 40 feet high, and they realized that the law of diminishing returns would have fatal consequences. So they added complexity to their dreams. They used math and experimented with wings. They were prepared for trial and error. They knew that sometimes they would crash, and so they knew that a Carolina sand dune was a better place to land than an Ohio buckeye tree. It was a struggle, and not every plan worked. But they were committed to their dream and fed it with their time and their talent and treasure, and they flew. In this congregation, I have witnessed dreams coming true in the area of social action and justice. When I came here, the ministerial search community asked me to be a voice for justice in the community, and I was happy to do so. And in a pastoral-sized church, that's the easy thing to do. Whenever I got a bee in my bonnet, I would pontificate upon it. But as the congregation grew, we began to see we could do so much more if we made coordinated efforts. 2 weeks ago on Social Justice Sunday, we had over 20 different groups represented around this fellowship of putting our faith in humanity and making a better world into practice. In fact, we've been an incubator for social justice groups. Americans United for Separation of Church and State, Vigils for Healing, and the Piedmont Environmental Alliance are all distinct 501c3 nonprofit corporations that started with people in this congregation having an idea and saying, gee, this idea is even bigger than this congregation. This is an idea that needs to be out in the community. Our fellowship is not only a force for good in our community, we create new entities of social justice. And I have witnessed dreams coming true in the area of Canvas. This congregation was solvent long before I came here, and they've always been responsible, and they've always paid their fair share to the Unitarian Universalist Association, consistently giving more than you spend. But over the past years, there's been a steady growth and pledge payment for members and in total pledges. But I've seen a dream coming true in another area of Canvas, and that is the number of canvassers. Some years, it was so hard to recruit canvassers that the committee mailed out the request and asked people to mail it in. In the past 2 years, we've gotten more complex. We have done a face-to-face canvass. More complex requires more organization. But we have over 50 canvassers, and it means that each person is asking only about 3 people for money. But just as important as the money are the conversations themselves. By talking to one another, we discover our common hopes and dreams. We are still dreaming, and these conversations strengthen the foundation of this fellowship. The money raised by the canvas pays for this community, but the conversations are the very stuff and substance of this community. The idea of dinner circles that are intergenerational, all these things that we do to form a community of open-minded people is what most of us are seeking. And when we were smaller, it was easy to find time for intimate conversation. That at the end of the service, I usually walked to the back. And I started doing that because I found out quickly as we grew that there's no way for me to get across this room after the service because the conversations, the community building. If I want to shake hands at the door, I better get to the door before you all stand up. But that's a sign of health because of the sense of how much you're networking, but also there's so many conversations here that the people on that side of the room don't necessarily know the people on this side of the room. And so we have to create structures where we work harder at making sure we bump into each other and we build those bonds. In this community, in the new year, we'll be starting a small group ministry, a chance and an opportunity to have more of these conversations, to go deeper in the ideas of what we believe in and how we live and work with people who may believe differently than us, both within this congregation and outside of this congregation. We open our minds and learn from each other. The theme of these conversations will be radical hospitality. We will explore how we can make this fellowship even more welcoming and how we can make ourselves personally more welcoming. Many people have expressed the dream of growth, the dream of expanding our building, expanding our membership. And conversation is how we learn about one another, how we learn about ourselves. I dream of taking this community out, this conversation into the community. And the Unitarian Universalist Association, in most places in this country, October 14th is Association Sunday. The UUA is having a big fundraiser so that they can have a national ad campaign, and they scheduled it on our Pledge Sunday. So we said no. We're going to be doing that in January. But this week in Time magazine, the first ads about what Unitarian Universalists are appearing. And they will be appearing in a form where it's a adformation thing. There'll be like 2 ads on the side, then an article about Unitarian Universalists. And so it's a sense that there will be people in Winston-Salem who read Time magazine and say, so that's who they are. You know, and they might start coming to our door. And how do we participate in that? And how do we even increase our own presence in the community so people know? Social action is one way that we've been doing it. People know us. I see people say, well, I read about you in the paper. And so, you know, we're getting kind of notorious. And that's a good thing, because that's what attracts people. People are attracted to people who live their faith, who believe that the world is worth saving, that human beings are important, every single one of them. I dream we will have enough room to hold another service and make room for more. We have a precious community that's worth feeding. We have a precious community that's worth sharing. We have a precious community. Let us feed our dream. Let us nourish what we cherish. It requires being intentional. Requires saying, what we have here is wonderful, and it's worth sharing. And I'd say this as I lead you into a hymn which will be familiar to you in its melody, because the melody, most of you know to the words of Onward Christian Soldiers. But in UU style, we said we're going to do our own marching tune to this. So I want you to rise as you are able, sing as strongly as you can, forward through the ages, let us feed our dreams.